Welcome to part 2. As we leave Reverend Blick behind, we cover the rest of the churchyard in this one and the extension over the road, which is interesting because it has a watch house which was there to watch for body-snatchers and also a mortuary, both from the 1820s. Now these box vault tombs up here, if there is an inscription on the top of that one, I certainly won't be climbing up there to find out and see, because it doesn't look too stable, this structure. But it's got a fine coat of arms on it. And there are some very old tombstones. These ones here came from the floor inside the old church. They were put outside when the new church was rebuilt in 1715, and as years have gone by and rearrangements have been done, they've been stacked up here. But you can see what I mean about the instability, or rather the seeming instability of that structure. I'm not climbing up there, but that's slate on top of there, and slate lasts well, so there could well be an inscription. Now either side of me are modern memorials to people, so obviously I won't cover those. You've got Jesus on the cross. Now in this episode we cover probably, my favourite memorial. I do usually have favourites from a churchyard when I cover it. When I say that, I mean one that I find the most interesting. So we'll be covering that in a minute. But here is one of these box tombs, and a lot of people think the coffins are put inside these boxes. They're not. If you look inside there, you can see the brick structure which is put inside to hold it up. It's just a box above ground, decorative, with inscriptions on, and the coffins are in a vault below. There's a great line of these vaults along here. If you check out my pictures of St Mary's and the church and churchyard, you'll see pictures of these, but the inscriptions are so very, very worn away that you aren't really going to see much at all. So, I'll point you this way so I don't film that young fella who's doing work on the church. Here they are, you can see it there, and they're all worn away. Rotherhithe Picture Research Library, that building is there, so it's meant to have a very good collection. I may pop in there myself, although I've had some very kind help from Southwark Archives, from a lady called Jacqueline. So that does for me. Of course, look over there, the famous Mayflower, which started its life off as the spread eagle, then the spread eagle and crown, and didn't become the Mayflower as we know it until 1956. Even its interior, which is all made from old stuff, 17th century, but even its interior is 1956. But amazingly done, as you've seen, anyone that's watched that. And I've done these videos in the particular order of the church, the pub, then the churchyard, so I could tell the story of A, the area, B, the Mayflower and the Pilgrim Fathers. And now with this, these two, part one of this really, the story of Captain Christopher Jones is buried in the churchyard. So it was done in an order for that reason. Hopefully you've found it concise enough and easy to follow. Sacred to the memory of Mrs. Eleanor Hill, wife of Mr. Thomas Hill, who departed this life the 29th of May 1802, aged 29 years. Affliction sore long, time I bore, physicians were in vain, my pleas and death did, and the rest of it's gone. But from that little verse there, we can tell that that young lady, aged 29, would have died from a fairly long and protracted illness. Pains bore so long and physicians were not of use. In an age where most physicians resorted to bleeding people, well, these ones here, I mean, there are some, look. George, and the surname's gone. Because some, look, you can see George, but some parts of it are so worn away. These are the old Georgian era ones, because after 1821 they started burying in the extension to the churchyard, which we'll be seeing in a little while, in memory of, and the rest of that's unfortunately gone. I hate that, because I do like to put names to faces if I can. But my favourite one, what I want to show you, is over here. And the writing is a bit colloquial, so you'll have to bear with me. Here lieth interred in this vault, and by the way, I must say this is from the old church that was put back in place when they built this new church. They did spare and save and retrieve quite a few of the old memorials, so that's nice. Yeah, here lieth interred in this vault the body of Captain Thomas Stone, Jr., of this parish. He departed this life the 9th of August 1666, and had to wife Agnes, which surviveth. Now, interesting date, August 1666. This man would have lived through the Great Plague and would have seen the Great Fire of London, so that's interesting. But the inscription is pretty good. To you, ye lie, ye posset great, troubles do befall, when we yet sleep, by death but it's do feel no home at all. In honest life doth bring a joyful death at last, and life again begins when death is past. Death is the path to the life and way to endless wealth, the door whereby we pass to everlasting, spelled EUERLASTIN, everlasting health. These 40 years and 5 have passed here my life, so you know his age was 45, and 18 years thereof thou, Agnes, wert my wife. My loving wife, farewell. God guide thee with his grace. Prepare thyself to come, and I will give the place. Acquaintance all, farewell, and be assured of this, you shall be brought to dust, as Thomas Stone here is. Yeah, that's my favourite one. I just love the colloquial spelling of it and the inscription. Whoever thought that up, and I should imagine it's probably Agnes, his wife, that was a loved man. I've checked online, I've asked in the archives and everything, there are no known images of Captain Thomas Stone, unfortunately. In this vault are deposited the remains of Francis Theodore Hay, who departed this life at Hayes in Middlesex on the 11th day of May 1838, aged 70 years, to whose memory this tomb is erected. Also in memory of Eleanor Gordon Hay, wife of the above, who departed this life the 30th day of September 1799, aged 33 years. There is an inscription on this side. It is quite worn. To the memory of, and it's got something Charles Hay, but it's very, very worn away. And this over here, which we think is at first glance a box tomb, it's not. This was once the old bone chute down into the crypt, the original crypt, because when they rebuilt the church they built it at a different angle, further away from the river, but the crypt they reused, and this was the entry point or chute down into there. So when charnelling time came, roughly about every 100 years, when they needed more room in the churchyard, up would come old bones, usually from the poor parish graves. The gentry ones that marked with stones would be left well alone, and they'd be put down here for a bone chute into the crypt, piled up neatly or put into an ossuary, and that was perfectly acceptable in those days. Even if you were slightly better off, like Captain Christopher Jones, and that may have happened to him when his grave was lost, it was accepted as long as you stayed within the bounds of your parish church, ready for Judgment Day. So this is locked, so you will join me back round the front. We are now back round the front, and it's a desperate fight really between my favourite one of who is here, between Captain Stone and Prince Lebu. Thinking about it, I don't know. Yeah, I think Prince Lebu may win. It's such a fascinating and human story. Sad, obviously, because he came to a country that he wanted to learn more about, and did start to learn more about, even going to the European school at London. Unfortunately, he came into contact with an illness that people from his part of the world had absolutely no immunity to whatsoever, which was smallpox. So, yeah, 20 years old, and he was well loved and was noted for his elocution and how well mannered he was. He attended church services here at Rotherhithe and other churches in London, and he died in the parish here, well, as we heard anyway. But we'll be going over to the extension in a minute, just walking past the charity school with its blue coat boy and girl. And this is interesting. This is St Margaret's Rotherhithe Watch House, 1821. The watch house. In the 19th century, a watchman would have been stationed here to guard against body-snatchers. They stole corpses from the adjoining burial ground for medical research at Guy's Hospital, and they did have a couple stolen from here and a couple stolen from the old churchyard over there as well, and it caused a bit of an outcry in the parish. Obviously wouldn't it? So yeah, the watch house here was built. The matching building over there is the fire watch house, which we covered on our entry into Rotherhithe. So yeah, this is where a watchman would have been put on guard to watch for body snatchers, but the old tableau is who shall watch the watchman, because some of those watchmen were quite corrupt and open to corruption. So if they were easily bribed, well, no one would know in the morning if a freshly dug grave still looked freshly dug and someone had been taken out of it, sadly. Yeah, this is the 1821 extension to the churchyard. Since my last visit, everything's been nicely trimmed and cut back. A, exposing more graves, and B, exposing the foundation stone of the mortuary, which is just there. But firstly, this burial ground was purchased Anno Domini 1820, enclosed and consecrated in 1821. The Reverend J.S. Hewitt, rector, John Ward and William Hampton, church wardens. So yeah, you've got these stones here. A lot of them are very, very worn away. very worn away. But as I say about the cutting back, this has exposed these ones over here, and I have to go careful because there's a great big foxhole. I do my pre-research and pre-walk rounds with these, so hopefully I can bring them to you in a fairly legible way. Here we have it, in memory of Mr. Ralph Walker, who departed this life the something of March 1822, aged, and you can't see his age because it's worn away. Also, Samuel Walker, son of the above, who departed this life the 20th of January 1820, that's either 5 or 8, in the 20th year of his age. You've got a bit of a verse there, but parts of it are quite worn. Then you've got also Susanna, the wife of the above named Ralph Walker, who departed this life, and you're not going to see that because it's worn away, and there's another stone in front of it. You've got some more along here, and this is where I have to go careful because this is where the fox warren is. Yeah. Moore. This one is Elizabeth Moore. Sadly, so much of them are worn. Sacred to the memory of Emma, daughter of Robert and Mary Talbot of this parish, who departed this life, who died the 9th of July 1837, aged 15 months. Also of her sister Mary Ann, who died the 9th of November 18, that looks like 32, in the 21st year of her age. The rest of it below that's worn away, I'm afraid. Yeah, but the mortuary is an interesting building for a couple of reasons, as we'll find out in a minute. In memory of Margaret Sarah, the affectionate wife of Mr. Thomas of this parish, died June the 30th, 1839, aged 39 years. Having fought the good fight, her Saviour has give a mansion prepared in the glories of heaven. And the rest of it is blistered away, so I won't carry on reading that. But yeah, they go all the way along here. And this one over here, I'll show you. Its inscription's gone, but it's got a very, very fine coat of arms on it. And I wish I did know someone who was more into their heraldry. See, it's got ship there, a flag above. There's eagles, all sorts. Over here, the tombstones go all the way around, and this churchyard was always circular in shape for a reason, so it was easy to keep an eye on. This is the mortuary over here. It's called the Time and Talent Club now. They do a lot of different things in it. Get over this way. St Mary's, Rotherhithe. This building were erected by the vestry AD 1826. Chairman, the Reverend Edward Joseph Beck. Vice Chairman Francis John Bassley. Clerk James John Stokes. And the mortuary was here, so because many people when they died in those days they were laid out at home, but if you weren't able to have that option, so if you didn't have a family, or your family didn't want to know, or you died in the workhouse or the poorhouse, or if you died in suspicious circumstances and the coroner needed to examine you, this would be where you would be taken to, the mortuary. Not the most cheerful of histories to it, I'm afraid, but there we are. I'm going to look around at St Mary's. I turn you around very quickly, sorry, because there's someone on the bench and I don't like filming people without their consent, as I'm always saying. And here it is, Time and Talent. And I'll take us out this way so I can discuss its blue plaque. But it's got an allotment attached to it now, so they do quite a lot. It has clubs for young people, clubs for elderly people. On my last visit I saw a load of old ladies inside knitting. So and you can just see through there the blue plaque. So I'm going to pause you a minute and I can read out what it says, because I've got a copy of a picture of it on my other phone. So be back in a sec. We are back. London Borough of Southwark, Time and Talent, established 1887. Founded to improve the living and working conditions of women and children employed in the factories and docks of Bermondsey. Voted by the people. So yeah. So it once would have housed rotting cadavers, now houses old ladies knitting and kids doing finger paintings and making pictures out of what looked like macaroni on one of my visits as well. So yeah, we can but hope that it's not haunted by any of its ghosts of the past, shall we say. And that, ladies and gentlemen, concludes our churchyard tour. I hope you've all found it interesting, and there aren't many historical images, but what there are we'll follow at the end of the video. Here you see the church and its churchyard in 1747. The churchyard at this point is not enclosed. That would come later after the theft of bodies. And if you look over to the bottom left, you can just see the little tombstones dotted around. And what a different world it still was at that time. And without the tall buildings that now back onto the church, if you look to the left again, you can see how close we are to the Thames by the tall masted ships that are there. If you look over to the right, where the church door is, you can just see a little group of young ladies and their schoolma'am making their way from the charity school into church. Would have been for their morning service, I should imagine. And the mortuary building. Now, a little bit of research and zooming in on the picture I took while at home, I've discovered that it's not 1826, it's 1896. St Mary's, Rotherhithe. These buildings were erected by the vestry AD 1896. Chairman, Reverend Edward Jocelyn Beck. And here is the man himself. Now you'll remember at the end of part 1 the grave of Reverend Edward Blick. Reverend Beck here followed Reverend Blick in 1867 when Reverend Blick passed away. This man became the incumbent, and you see him here 1 year after his incumbency in 1869. Here you see him again, but as a much older man. He was Reverend or Rector of this church for 40 years. Canon Edward Jocelyn Beck, Rector of Rotherhithe. In 1867, Reverend Edward Jocelyn Beck succeeded Blick and held the position until 1907. Another Clare College Fellow. Beck's many contributions to the community included a history of the parish of St Mary's, Rotherhithe, published in 1907, which was the year of his death. And the mortuary was only a mortuary for 3 years. After that, as things changed in the social scale, the bodies were kept elsewhere. So the mortuary was cleared out and put over to other uses, including time and talent. Here we see St Mary's Churchyard garden in 1961. Over to the left you can see the charity school. To the right you can see the old fire watch house, still fully intact in this image. In our time you've only got the frontage of it and the rest of it is gone. Yeah, this is the old churchyard garden, and that concludes our tour. Thanks for watching everyone.